Friends, I am not happy. I'm not happy. I don't like waking up to bad news. And today we woke up to terrible news. Per Shams Charania on Twitter, Atlanta Hawks Jalen Johnson will undergo season-ending surgery to repair a shoulder injury. It was later noted that it's a torn labrum. Sources told Shams at ESPN. Johnson averaged 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists for the Hawks this season. He was awesome. He was hovering around first-round value before the first shoulder injury. He came back and he just sort of wasn't the same after that. Finished at number 24 per game in 9 category leagues. He makes it through about half the season. And now we'll have to figure out what the hell to do with that roster spot with Jalen out for the year. I wish that there was a simple answer to this predicament, but sadly there is not, because no one for the Hawks has really stepped up for Jalen Johnson in a meaningful and consistent way. We've seen Vit Krejci play relatively well lately. He's gone on a top 90 kind of run, but that's also coincided with Zachary Risa-Shea being out, Bogdan Bogdanovic being out. Now Clint Capella has been out for a couple of ball games. So we haven't really gotten the, okay, well, what is this Hawks team going to look like when some of those guys are back, but also now not Jalen Johnson? The immediate thought is it could be Krejci. It could be Larry Nance Jr. if they wanted to run big. Yesterday, Mo G played 22 minutes as the starter and had 11 and 7, but we don't really care. DeAndre Hunter figures to take more shots and probably play more minutes, provided his knee can actually handle it, but his main source of fantasy value is scoring. There isn't a guy that can do the points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks thing that Jalen Johnson was doing. This is a disaster. He's been out for stretches lately anyway, so it's not like we haven't had some kind of data on this. And unfortunately, the data says that there just isn't much good that's going to come out of it. Atlanta's not good without Jalen Johnson. Guys don't do very much. If you're looking at the previous game, Krejci had 4, 5, and 6 before this last one where he had whatever it was last night, 12 and 3 or something like that. It was fine. 13 and 5, couple of steals, a block. There was a little bit of everything in that one. So if you insist upon making a move, Vit Krejci is probably the injury replacement ad. But his upside is next to nothing. There's no way that he's better than top 90. And in all likelihood, he probably settles back into that filler level range. The actual hope, my hope, is that Bogdan Bogdanovic finally gets right. And they just say, screw it, we got to play small. And it's, Okongwu at center. And I know they want Hunter coming off the bench, so placeholder at power forward to start the game. But then you get a lot of Hunter and a lot of Bogdanovic alongside Trae Young and Dyson Daniels. It's a very small lineup, and they'll get pushed around by a lot of teams. But you might just kind of have to lean into the scoring now. Or who knows? Maybe they'll continue to play Krejci 34, 35 minutes a ball game, in which case, all right, then you've got a guy that hovers near the edge of the top 100. But overall, it's just crap news, and I don't know how I make this not bad for you guys. Unfortunately, it's not the only bad news of the morning. We'll tell you about the other bad news after we tell you about the good news, and that is our continued partnership with Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion, hosting the largest selection of odds on everything from football to the NBA, college basketball. Yeah, the Super Bowl is coming up, guys. This is the time to get down. You gotta get up, get down. NHL, UFC, more to come, obviously, as the year rolls around. BetOnline remains your number one sports betting source. Every touchdown to three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more on every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Here's the other bit of news this morning. Anthony Davis, and you know me, I'm watching these Laker games. I'm trying to watch them with my kid because I want him to care about his local Los Angeles teams, and then we'll have things that we can watch and do together. AD went out midway through the first quarter of the Lakers' loss in Philadelphia. The Lakers went from leading that ball game by 3 to then immediately losing by like 20. And they're, from a Lakers standpoint, in a ton of trouble because AD is going to be out at least 1 week with an abdominal muscle issue. You know, these things don't heal quickly. They have to be very careful not to rush him back or they'll lose him for the rest of the damn season. The Lakers really have no choice but to trade for a center right now. And from a fantasy standpoint, whoever they trade for, that's the guy you want. The rest of these guys suck. Jackson Hayes sucks. Christian Coloco, fun, but sucks. Running small, sucks. The Lakers are going to get blitzed by pretty much any competent NBA team right now. I think I saw a tweet this morning that they basically have the 27th best plus minus in the NBA when Anthony Davis is off the floor. And they were what, 7-8 games over 500 with him around? They're terrible without AD. He's played in 42 of their games so far this year. Up to this point, he'd been largely healthy. But they are a truly bad basketball team when they don't have Anthony Davis. Far and away the most important player on the Lakers. They're 26-19 now. I'm basically going to count yesterday as them not having AD. Like, they're awful. The last time they played a game without AD, what's that, 47? I think they barely beat a team that was trying to lose, if I'm not mistaken. In any event, there's no ad on this one. This is just sort of bad news. If you have AD, you got to sit it out, hope that he's back in, I think 2 weeks would be the hope on this one. But again, like, we're 2 weeks away from the All-Star break, so he might just sit it out through the break. What a lovely way to start the day. Anyway, welcome to the show. I'm Dan Besbris. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Follow on Twitter at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. If you've made it to this point in the show, you have a pretty good reason to subscribe, right? Hit that subscribe button, drop a 5-star on Apple or Spotify. Make sure to like our trade deadline live show. That's also quite important as we commence whatever it is. I'm just so irritated. This is going to be a hard show for me to get through today. All this bad injury news to start the morning. And you knew the AD thing wasn't going to be good because as soon as they ruled him out with abdominal, I was like, yeah, unless he's got diarrhea, this is just going to be bad for everybody. And so we commence. We'll get into the actual box scores. Grumble. There's the Lakers box score. They lost to the shorthanded 76ers because, again, they're bad without Anthony Davis. Dalton Knecht had 24 off the bench. I don't care. LeBron, Reeves. I truly don't know that anybody else steps up. The closest, well, the Lakers have one, I guess what you call kind of like a gimme game coming up here. I think they play the Wizards next. Am I remembering that right? Yeah, they got the Wizards tomorrow. That's a game they should be able to win without Anthony Davis, and then they might lose the next 3 or 4 in a row. The Wizards game, if they start Jackson Hayes, he might do enough because the Wizards are just that bad. Otherwise, you'd assume that the closest would be Rui Hachimura, but I'm not doing anything. Over on the Sixers side, as soon as Anthony Davis went down, everybody just had their way with the Lakers. Tyrese Maxey had 43. Oubre had 20. Yabusele had 14 and 5 with 4 steals. Ricky Council had 16 and 7 in only 19 and a half minutes. You're not doing anything with that. Eric Gordon hit 3 threes in 31 minutes. He is a 3-point streamer only. Oubre, Yabusele, those are guys that you can stream in all formats. And then Justin Edwards, who you'll hear from in, when is my drop in that show? So I think Adam King mentioned Justin Edwards as a potential stash type of guy. That show's going to air, I think, overnight later tonight. He had 3 steals in his 29 minutes, and he's basically a steals stream at this point as well. Not much else to take from that one. Houston beat Atlanta, which this game was closer than it should have been. Jayshawn Tate had 16 points and 4 steals on a near perfecto. And that's basically because Tari Eason was resting a back-to-back and Cam Whitmore was bad. And so they just went one deeper. Rockets looked tired in this ballgame, which is not at all a surprise because they beat the Celtics on a game winner. I think that was the night before, right? Wasn't that second half of a back-to-back? If I was a betting man still, I would have put a whole lot on the Hawks, and I think they covered. I think the line was like 5, so they barely covered, but Atlanta was up for a lot of this game. This one had letdown written all over it. Anyway, Houston snuck by, so that's good because the Hawks don't have Jalen Johnson, and I'm going to just keep crying. Dyson Daniels is great. Okongwu was not that great, but he'll be fine. He's the starter. He's playing good minutes, so you got nothing to worry about there. DeAndre Hunter had 30-something the previous game, 16 and 5 here. Not a great game for him, but you're going to hold on DeAndre, especially now with Jalen Johnson out for the year. The weird stuff here is kind of the in-between, which is, Mo G had 11 and 7 in a 22-minute start. Larry Nance only played 20 minutes off the bench. That's not enough. We need him to get up around 25, but I would keep a close watch on Nance in case they decide to kind of run the two big lineup. And then Vit Krejci had 13 and 5 with a couple steals and a block, not much in the way of field goal or free throw percent. He's been bouncing around lately. I mentioned in a short that we put out earlier today that Krejci, over the last, I guess it's basically like the last 3 weeks where, how long? Because Jaylen Johnson missed a few games here before this recent injury. Krejci over the last 3 to 4 weeks is at 11, 3, and 4 with pretty good steals and blocks numbers. That'll play. And really, like in the Jaylen Johnson universe, Krejci is probably the closest thing you've got to a maybe. There just isn't anything obvious to do right now. Like, what is Krejci really for your team? Is he going to be a top 90 to 130 range guy? That's something. But he's not a needle mover, And if Bogdan Bogdanovic comes back, that's going to pull from Krejci. And forgetting one other player because my brain's exploding. I think you could add him. I think you could play him and kind of hope that the steals and blocks hold where they are. But I don't think that any of that is guaranteed, especially when you look at, he had some opportunities to do stuff last season, and the three-pointers were pretty good, but the steals and blocks were significantly lower last year. That number is up. The assists are up this year. And yeah, it's conceivable he got better. So I don't want to completely disregard the idea that maybe, the steals and blocks got better and the assists got better, and maybe that's something that actually does hold. But it also feels a little bit like things are slightly inflated. I think Krejci could have a chance to be kind of in that 100 range. So he is probably the add here. But what I'd like to see is more Larry Nance because he has the better fantasy game. He's the guy that can put up big fantasy numbers in 25 to 30 minutes, where with Krejci, you really do need 33, 34 minutes for him to get to that 100 range of value. But he did it yesterday because he played 36 minutes. Now, you give almost anybody in the NBA 36 minutes, then you want to take a look at him. I do wonder, does this knock the Hawks into a different season posture? They're the number 9 team in the East, but they've lost 6 games in a row. And it's basically like they don't have their most important. Jalen Johnson's more important to them, I think, than Trae Young at this point. But maybe I'm overstating it a tad. Do we think the Sixers and Bulls would pass them? I'd say it's conceivable because, again, without Jalen Johnson, they're not very good. Milwaukee was on a tough back-to-back. I think we actually even talked about this on yesterday's show. They were... Where the hell is this? There we go. I had looking at the wrong page here. They had that high-scoring game in altitude, and then they had to fly all the way up to Portland for their next one, and they just didn't have much juice in the tank. I wouldn't read too much into this game. Chris Middleton was absolutely terrible, and honestly, I don't know how you hold Middleton anymore. If you were, he's just he's just not good anymore. His body doesn't have it. Whatever it may have had in the past, it doesn't have it anymore. And like we can keep hoping that at some point they'll turn him loose. I just like we're at the end of January now, and he's been bad. I dropped him in a couple of spots. I had him stashed in some roto leagues because I figured I could just do it because Yahoo roto leagues have 3 IL spots, and you really only need like 11 healthy players. So you have like 16 slots to work with, and you only need 11 or 12. So I sat on him in a couple of spots. I dropped him. I think he's going to be bad all year. I yelled at you all during the preseason, do not draft Middleton any place where you cannot take zeros. And it's been, I think, worse than anybody ever expected. And I expected pretty bad. Meanwhile, down goes Jeremy Grant, turned an ankle, managed to get through half the ball game first, and I would assume that this keeps him out. I don't know. With Jeremy Grant, we assume that everything's going to keep him out for at least 2 weeks, so maybe through the All-Star break, but I guess he could resurface and surprise us. Tumani Kamara, who we've been talking about on the show a lot over the last couple of weeks, he's kind of moved into like my second tier of second half guys. He's not in my favorites bucket because his percentages are bad, and so you need a lot of the other stuff, but he might get a lot of the other stuff if the Blazers kind of clear out some of the usage guys. Like maybe Simons gets moved, maybe Ayton gets moved, maybe Grant gets moved. Unfortunately here, DeAndre Ayton came back. He actually had a good ball game, so I don't want to poop on him too much, but it did ruin whatever we were trying to do with Donovan Clingan or Robert Williams, who I hope is a Laker by the end of business day today, but I also realized that a man can dream. What do we do with the Blazers? Well, Simons is a guy you're trying to sell on the fear that he ends up someplace else or shut down. Shaden Sharp is a hold for punt points, or not, sorry, on field goal percent teams. Denny Avdia, obviously he's going to be rostered everywhere because Jeremy Grant missed a bunch of time, but I think he's going to have a really good end of season stretch. This looks like not we're already like 3 weeks into the Avdia, call it the second half run. Ayton is a guy you're trying to sell if at all possible. Scoot is a hold. Kamara is a stash if you can. Clingan is a stash if you can. And Robert Williams, I don't know how you stash a guy who's getting zeros, but I do think he ends up on some other team playing 18 to 22, 24 minutes a game, and that would be a guy that you'd want. Jeremy Grant, I hope that you didn't draft him. I pray, but every time he's healthy, you try to move him. Utah. Okay, so we'll play the who started for Utah game. It was Colin Sexton. A tumbleweed rolls by. Colin Sexton was the only established player who started for the Utah Jazz. Keontae George continues to come off the bench now as the backup scoring / point guard. And I mean, so here's the thing. Nothing about the way nothing changes for me on Keontae George from like the first day of July or the 5th day of July or whenever free agency happened. Basically, as soon as we turned the page to this season, I've said the same thing. If you're not punting field goals and turnovers, you should not have Keontae George on your roster. Nothing changes for me on that front. If you are, then you're holding there. If you drafted him and you're not punting those things, you should be trying to sell him off to a team that is, because they'll probably give you a half decent return, but no one else will. Because he's not good. He's been okay lately when the team's rested everyone. That's the key here. Also, his turnovers have been like weirdly low of late. I think he's only at like 1.5 turnovers per game over the last, whatever it is, 3 weeks, something like that. He has the ability to get points and assists and threes in a way that could markedly help a lot of fantasy basketball teams. But the pains he will put your team through make him typically a bigger negative than positive. Again, unless you have that right team build. That's why team build is so important. We talked about it a million times leading up to the season. Certain guys are certain fits. Isaiah Collier, by the way, is a similarly interesting fit guy. He's a good assists dude, who is likely to hurt you a lot in field goal percent and turnover, just like Keontae George, but better assists, probably better steals than Keontae, lower three-pointers, I would assume, slightly better rebounding on average. Again, belongs on a lot of rosters, just like Keontae George does, but not all. And so you get caught, and you know, this is an interesting discussion point because there's this idea of like, if there's a player out there that makes sense for other teams, I should go try to get them. And because, this is a guy that other people want. It's okay to leave a guy like that on the wire if he doesn't fit your team. I don't know what your team looks like. I have some teams where Isaiah Collier makes a lot of sense. I have a team where I'm basically punting points and free throw a little bit. Not all the way. I'm like sort of half engaged in those two categories. So for those, uh, Collier actually makes a lot of sense. I don't mind the fact that the turnovers are kind of on the high side because the most of my team doesn't turn the ball over. So okay, I win that by less, and I need the assist and I need the rebounds out of a guard spot. My threes are not very good, so if I lose that in a given week, it's not the end of the world. That guy makes a lot of sense on that team. I have a 9-cat roto team where I am very much trying to be competitive in turnovers and field goal percent, and I'm not picking him up on that team. And that's okay. It's not wrong on either side. Find the fit. Is a lot of fantasy basketball. Find the fit. Micah Potter came out of nowhere. I'm not going to do anything with that. If Walker Kessler continues to miss time, I think Drew Eubanks as the stream. And I don't know why I sort of glossed over it last time. I guess I just thought that Kessler would be back. But I think he's actually like legitimately hurt this time instead of just taking a few days off because they called it rest before. Now they're saying he actually has a hurt shoulder. They might. Was this a back-to-back for Utah? Yeah, they started the week with a back-to-back. They might just hold Kessler out through the trade deadline or the All-Star break. And so you might get some stuff out of Eubanks. I'm going to add him in a couple of spots. Because again, like you're looking at fit, and with Eubanks or Drew Banks, as some may call him, he actually has a relatively fantasy-friendly game. He blocks shots, good field goal percent, usually rebounds a little better than that. I'm not adding Bryce Sensabaugh. Again, he's a guy you're kind of looking down the line at as a potential guy. And then I will say this, Colin Sexton is a huge beneficiary of Collier being in the starting lineup instead of Keontae George. Colin Sexton is like maybe the big winner in all of this, provided he remains in Utah the rest of the year. Because now he can go back to just being the like do-it-all shooting guard. Just chuck away, man. Doesn't have to share shots with Keontae. Just Larry Markkinen when he comes back. But he's not out. He's not in right now. Yay. Aw. For the Golden State Warriors, this was a get Steph Curry a rest game. Dennis Schroeder was good with Steph out. That's a pretty one-to-one correlation. Moses Moody at 15. I don't care. Kevon Looney at 11 rebounds. I don't care. Trey Jackson-Davis played 6 minutes. He's a drop. Pretty safe drop at that point. Wiggins is a hold. And you may notice that I'm circling around Brandon Podziemski, who, look, you guys have heard me talk about Podziemski a bunch this year, and I've been pretty down on him. But he is now showing signs of life for basically the first time ever. Or first time this year would be the fair way to put it. Since coming back from injury, and he was out from December 28th until January 23rd, so he almost missed a month. He's looked really good in these 3 games. Now, this one was a pretty easy one to predict with no Steph, but Steph was in for the other 2. The funny thing is that Podziemski is way over rostered. This is a dude that was outside the top 200 until these last 3 pretty good ball games, and it pushed him inside the top 190. He's rostered like almost everywhere, which is absolute beyond buck wild crazy nonsense. But if he's not in your league, I think this is probably the time to pick him up speculatively, see what he looks like, as the Warriors get some of their guys back, because no Draymond Green and no Steph Curry, everything changes for the offense, and pods can be sort of a bigger part of it. Does he have the ability to maintain doing stuff even as those other Warriors come back? I don't know. You're not adding Schroeder unless Steph has to miss another ball game. Pods is the guy you're going to add and see how the next, say, 3-ish games go, and then you'll kind of feel it out from there. And we got this one done in 25 minutes because I spent the first 6 minutes crying on air. Ah, no more. My heart can't take any more. So long, Jalen Johnson. We hardly knew ye. We'll see you in 2025, 2026. Anthony Davis, hopefully, we'll see you not too long from now. He'd actually been relatively healthy so far this year. Crummy day, a crummy recap show indeed, but I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Hey, guess who won their underdog card yesterday and has 2 thumbs? This guy. Let's do another one today. Let's dive in. So, you guys can get over there. Let's sign up. Underdogfantasy.com is the website. Use promo code OLDMAN, OLDMAN, or just click the link in the show description. It's super easy to find your way over there. If you use our promo code, you unlock up to $1,000 in deposit match bonus. That's at a 50% deposit match clip, and a free play, which again, I already blew through mine. And I lost on it because I decided I wanted to make it sort of like a big pick'em card instead of just going free play and one other guy. And, I'm an idiot. All right, so I haven't really looked through what's going on today. We're going to screen share this while we make a bad card. Here's underdogfantasy.com. It's super simple. You guys have seen me do it at this point. Again, old man is the promo code. I want to collapse. Those are the popular players. Let's go to NBA. We're going to collapse them all so I can see all the games. Oh, lots of choices. Let's see. Toronto, Washington, Detroit, Indiana, Brooklyn, Charlotte. All right, I bet Brooklyn, Charlotte will have something. No, I'm going to assume LaMelo Ball is out. Vasilija Micic has some props up there. I don't like him very much. And then with Brooklyn, I don't even really know what the hell is going on there. D'Lo is the big one. With D'Lo, I might take a higher on point, board, assist together. This is where I keep getting screwed up, as I keep just going points instead of the combo platter. I don't know how there's enough guys here with Brooklyn to take away from D'Angelo Russell in a game that'll probably be competitive. Oh, look, his points just got taken off the board. All right, we'll go PRA for D'Lo higher. And what other games do we got? Denver, New York. Nuggets just lost one in Chicago. They're going to be pissed. So Jokic, PRA 50.5. 25, 10, and 10 doesn't get you there. It's asking a lot out of Jokic. That's a huge number. And then Cat, he's always going to be fired up to play Jokic. What's Cat averaging on the year, point-wise? 24.9. Oh, they've got him right on his number. Yeah, you know what? Well, we'll do 2 highers today. Even though we hit yesterday with the Brook Lopez under. We'll go D'Lo and we'll go Cat. I'm going to do a very small card because I don't have any help from my buddy Brenton Eckersley. Just a $2 card just to get something going. If you guys want to play along with me, feel free. You can see how not super confident I am in this. But we'll see how it goes. We won our last one with the Oubre-Brook Lopez combo. Oubre was over and Lopez was under. Don't be afraid to play some lowers as you make your pick'em card over at underdogfantasy.com. This has been a lot of fun for me, especially now that I'm doing very small dollar amounts. I can make this last through the rest of the year. You could do the same. Underdogfantasy.com, promo code OLDMAN when you sign up. Just put in like $50. They'll give you an extra 25, and you can do, $3, $4 a day. And if we're even half decent at this, we should be able to make that last through the year, maybe even grow it a little bit. Come play. It's fun. It's a way to do DFS where I don't have to know an entire card's worth of games to mix and match a bunch of salaries and stuff like that. It's a good ball. It is actually a fun game. Thanks for watching, everybody. I am Dan Vespers for Old Man Squad. Again, you got to subscribe if you made it this far. Appreciate you guys. We're growing like wildfire right now. I shouldn't use that expression. Ugh, man, January sucked. Let's get to February already. Growing like a weed. That's a better one. Growing like a weed over here at Old Man Squad. And that's all because of you guys. So subscribe, like, make sure to check out our trade deadline live show, which we've amended It will start at 7 a.m. Pacific time. It's 5.5 hour show with some of my favorite people all hanging out with me on it. It's gonna be a super, super fun day. And that's what is that? It's 8 days from now? Oh, man. Can we get to 750 in 8 days? I don't know. All right, I'm out of here. Later, guys.